Jaron Jarvis Channel, Top 20 Scary Stories of the Day from Reddit nosleep. 2018, 09:15. Story 1, Glassman. Fingers like daggers. Eyes clear as day. If you see the glass man, you'll go away. This bizarre message was found sliced into the body of a 7-year-old girl in Central Park on September 23, 2016 at approx 6:39 p.m. She was discovered face down naked in a pool of blood by a jogger the same evening who immediately contacted authorities and was cleared of any involvement in the crime within 48 hours. An autopsy of the body was performed by Chief Medical Examiner T. Rigaro and discovered that cause of death to the girl was blunt force trauma to chest and head, with over 37 shards of broken glass in her face and neck alone. Each line of text was placed on a different portion of the girl's body, and seemed to form an odd symbol when superimposed on a screen separate from the child's body. Initial fingerprints and dental records failed to identify the girl in the missing persons database for the state of redacted. File submitted to FBI Chief Analyst B. Erudite on November 14, 2016. A further investigation of the National Missing Persons Database revealed the girl to match closely with a since-closed investigation in redacted, Nevada. Initial case began on July 3, 2007 by Detective H. Sherman when family reported their daughter went missing on the morning of July 1. Initial investigation was towards stepfather, but no evidence was ever found to suggest ill intent. Case was filed into the Missing Persons Database on October 3 of the same year. Federal investigation was reopened on November 17, 2016. All evidence relating to name redacted was sent to FBI chief analysts. Submitted items included 2 butterfly bows that the girl had in her hair with drops of blood on them. 17 Lego pieces found in her room that had no color to them or seemed clear or opaque with odd markings found on them. 10 drawings made by the girl of her holding hands with a strange ghostly-looking figure. In all the drawings the figure looks to be approx 3 times the size of the self-made drawing of the girl, having a white body and no face or eyes. The figure is always seeming to stretch his hand out toward the audience. 3 recordings of audio found in the basement of the family that they claimed to have no prior knowledge of. Recordings appear to be filled with static or white noise, and despite multiple attempts to recover what might have been on them, the only thing clearly audible is the girl crying softly as though she were trapped somewhere. On January 11, 2017 the body of name redacted, was found over 300 miles from his home with similar wounds relating to a previously closed case, and this were regrouped into a joint investigation on March 13 by Director C. Frail. By April 4, 2017 over 5 bodies of missing children were found at different states of decay. All presented with similar wounds, and all were found with the same message carved on the back of their bodies as though someone used a knife or broken glass to render the message visible. June 3, 2017, anonymous tipster contacted FBI to inform them of the website, Redacted, where users were commenting about an urban legend described as Glassman. The following post was discovered on June 5, 2017. He's here. In your head. In your eyes. Close your eyes and you can see him. Open them and all is clear. He's coming to find you. And then it will be over. On July 8, 2017 it was discovered that all activity on the redacted website concerning Glassman had stopped. Further investigation into the user profiles found that 63 users were no longer active in the community. July 13, 2017, the FBI managed to procure a digital warrant to receive user information regarding IP addresses for all 63 users. It was confirmed that all of them went missing within the months surrounding their posts relating to sightings of the supposed Glassman. July 28, 2017, 16 bodies were discovered in the Denali National Wildlife Reserve hung upside down from trees with skin, eyes and teeth removed from them. Further analysis discovered that the 16 bodies were connected to the group of missing users and each had a piece of glass placed inside their bodies, likely there placed before death. Chief Behavioral Analyst M. Williams was able to determine that the broken shards of glass had the following message on them. I see right through you. September 8, 2017. All records and photos relating to the subject of Glassman were removed from Google web searches and internet forums by the FBI Data Control and Threat Assessment Unit and labeled as both harmful to mental health and placed into the case file pending further investigation. On December 23, 2017, the remaining missing persons from the internet forums were discovered alive aligned in an unknown esoteric symbol near to Central Park. When interviewed afterward of the missing time and investigation, none of them seemed to recall the experience or be aware of any of lost time. On January 14, 2018, the case was considered officially closed and would be released into public domain within 9 months' time. National Data Assessment and Threat Unit was authorized to document all further instances of the terms Glassman or dates surrounding the case on February 4, 2018. Audio transcript detected May 3, 2018. We saw too much. But now we see clearly. He brought us back. To save more lives. To make them his. It's time. Time for everyone to see the Glassman. Text transcript detected. June 4, 2018. We are his eyes. We are his tools. More will come to him through us. Until all can be together. And we can see the Glassman clearly. Text transcript detected. July 6, 2018. It's too late. It's going to happen again. And again. It's going to keep happening. Because we let him see us. And you too. Glassman sees you all too clearly. Documents and files relating to case file 01702031010 were authorized into the public domain on September 14, 2018 at 8:32 MCST. Story 2, Police SWAT After Action Report 17 March 2018. Redacted, Police Department. Case file, 68031718. Case notes, call received from a deactivated phone line in an abandoned residence at, redacted, Gresham Street. Call believed to be from Officer Haney, missing since February 21, 2018, related case file, 37022118, 911 call transcribed below. Redacted, 911 call center, the 17th of March 2018 4:32 a.m. PST. 911 operator, redacted, 911, what is your emergency? Unknown caller, oh thank Christ. This is Officer George Haney, badge number 415. I'm at. Where the hell are we? Muffled female voice in background, presumed to be his partner Officer Tamlin, it's somewhere on Fillmore Street I think. We need a medical response immediately. 911 operator, George? Oh my god. Yells into background, guys it's George Haney. Back into phone, sound of typing in background, George, wow. It's good to hear from you. I show an address of, redacted, Gresham, ambulance on the way. We have some cars in the area, putting the call out to dispatch now. George Haney, assumed, yelling in background, hold it together, D. They're coming. Into phone, I'm moving her to the yard, get someone here quick. 911 operator, yeah, of course. Help's on the way. George Haney, assumed, female voice screams something inaudible in background, D. I can't. Male caller starts to make vomiting noises, followed by 6 gunshots in quick succession, followed by 2 several seconds later, line goes silent after. 911 operator, George? George, you guys okay? Hello? Inaudible talking in background, line disconnects. Police dispatch, main channel the 17th of March 2018 4:33 a.m. PST. Dispatch, car 243, drop to channel 3. Officer Tyler, car 243, dropping to 3. Police dispatch, channel 3. Officer Tyler, dispatch, this is Tyler. Dispatch, hey guys, we got a call for, redacted, Gresham Street, about 2 blocks south of you. Sounds like it's George Haney. Officer Tyler, whoa, they found George? Dispatch, sounds like, but shots were fired and the line disconnected. Get over there quick. Officer Tyler, on our way. Dashcam video shows car 243's lights go on and it speeds through a few turns, finding its way to Gresham Street pretty quick. As they turn in they pass a no outlet sign, and the houses on both sides of the street appear to be severely fire damaged. The only house mostly standing is at the end of the cul-de-sac. It stands 3 stories tall, and is much more ornate than the other houses on the street seemed to be. Officer Jared Taylor, body camera feed, transcribed, the 17th of March 2018 4:41 a.m., PST. Officer Taylor, Jesus, what happened here? You hear about fire? Officer Vance, nope. Can't say I remember ever hearing about a call from this street. Officer Taylor, man, that fire damage looks recent. Look, that one's still smoking. Officer Vance, no cars. Nothing in the yards. No grass even. Officer Taylor, getting one of those feelings. Officer Vance, yep. Feed shows them pull up to the big house at the end of the street. Officer Vance, call came from here? Officer Taylor, that's what dispatch said. Officer Vance, yeah, but lines are down. Nothing on this street should have phone service. Officer Taylor, George is in there. Officer Vance, size, yep. Feed shows them stepping out of the car and approaching the front door. Officer Vance, so do we clear around the sides or what? Officer Taylor, yeah, probably best. Let's swing around right. Feed shows the officers circle the house. They approach several windows slowly and peek in, but nothing inside can be seen on the camera. Officer Vance, whispers, no movement inside. There is a gate leading to the backyard, but it's wide open. They step through and find the backyard is well maintained. The grass is full and green, and appears to be freshly cut. There are several well-manicured bushes and a running fountain. The water looks clean, and the fountain and surround area is spotless. Officer Taylor, whispers, not exactly what I was expecting. Officer Vance, right? Feed shows them clear the back porch, which is itself well appointed and very clean, then head out through an open gate on the other side. They clear back around to the front door. Officer Vance, this is a big-ass house. Officer Taylor, get ready. Feed shows Officer Taylor knock hard on the door. Officer Taylor, this is, redacted, police. Open up. Feed shows Vance look to Taylor and shrug. Officer Taylor, we're coming in. Feed shows Taylor kick hard just under the doorknob. There is a solid thunk, but the door doesn't budge at all. Officer Taylor, I think I sprained my knee. Feed shows Taylor lean back against the wall and rub his leg. Vance tries the door and finds it unlocked. Officer Taylor, God damn it. Officer Vance, you alright? Feed shows Taylor push off the wall and test his leg. Officer Taylor, yeah, fine. Feed shows them move into the house. Officer Taylor appears to have a slight limp. The foyer opens into an expansive hallway with 2 doors on each side, which itself opens into a massive open living area. Despite the power being off, the natural light from all the windows illuminates the house very well. Feed shows Taylor and Vance draw their weapons. Officer Taylor, redacted, PD. Anyone here better speak up now. Feed shows no response. Taylor nods over to Vance who starts clearing rooms to the right. Taylor opens the first door to the left. It opens into a large, very clean bathroom. He quickly checks behind the curtain of the standing shower and moves back into the hallway. Vance moves out of the first door on the right and nods. He moves to the second door on the right as Taylor opens the second door on the left. It opens up into an expansive hallway with 2 doors on each side, which itself opens up into a massive open living area. Officer Taylor, what the? Feed shows Taylor turn around, but the door he's in leads to the front yard. Officer Taylor, Feed shows Taylor swing back around as the second door on the left swings open. Vance walks through. Officer Vance, Feed shows Vance give a confused gesture to Taylor, who shrugs back. They meet back up at the end of the hallway. Officer Taylor, okay, no more splitting up. Officer Vance, no, hold up. How is your reaction to this that we shouldn't split up? We should get the F. Officer Taylor, We still gotta find George. Feed shows Vance look around nervously. Officer Vance, yeah? George would look for us. Even in this weird-ass house. Feed shows the two whip around and raise their weapons as the front door is kicked in. Officer Vance, redacted, police. Show me your hands. Feed shows Taylor swat Vance's gun down. Officer Taylor, hold up, it's George. Officer Vance, no, this is weird. How could they have kicked the door open? Officer Taylor, I mean, it's pretty solid, but... Officer Vance, no, what? I watched you walk over here. You didn't shut the door. Officer Taylor, right, Feed shows Officers Hanny and Tamerlin approach them cautiously. Officer Hanny, Jared? Tim? What are you guys doing here? Officer Vance, looking for you? Where have you guys been? Officer Hanny, on patrol? Dispatch sent us here about some kind of domestic violence call. Feed shows Vance lean in close to Taylor. Officer Vance, whispers, that's the call they disappeared on. It wasn't to this address, though. There's a shout from behind them. Feed shows them whip around to find a very disheveled-looking man aiming a gun at them. Unknown man, stop right there. Redacted, Poe. Wait. Who are? No. No. Feed shows him open fire. The camera turns to see Officer Hanny duck into a side room while Officer Tamerlin takes a bullet to the midsection. Several wet thuds are heard as the camera feed jolts, then Taylor falls face first to the floor. Feed goes black for a moment, then he rolls to the side and Vance is seen running out the front door, firing back behind him. Taylor rolls onto his back as Tamerlin drags herself into a side door. The disheveled man runs after her, but when he opens the door he just starts cursing and slams it. He lurches back over and stands over Taylor. Unknown man, who are you? What do you want? Officer Taylor, Officer Jared Taylor. I'm here looking for George Hanny. Feed shows the unknown man scratching at his face. Unknown man, no. Feed shows Taylor put his hands up defensively as the unknown man opens fire on him. Police Dispatch, Channel 3, the 17th of March 2018, 5:15 a.m. PST. Officer Vance, dispatch, do you copy? Dispatch, go. Officer Vance, we have officers down, unknown armed suspect in the house. I had eyes on Hanny and Tamerlin, but we took fire and got separated. They're still in the house. Dispatch, all right, sit tight. I'm sending help. Police Dispatch, Main Channel, the 17th of March 2018, 5:16 a.m. PST. Dispatch, all available cars. We have an officer down at, redacted, Gresham Street. Captain Lang, you got ears on? Captain Lang, go. Dispatch, drop to Channel 50. Captain Lang, 50, Roger. Police Dispatch, Channel 50, the 17th of March 2018, 5:16 a.m. PST. Captain Lang, haven't used 50 for a while. You want to put SWAT on this? Dispatch, officers down, unknown assailant in the house, missing officers, officers wounded, everyone's location within the structure is unknown. Supervisors over here say yeah. Captain Lang, all right, all my guys are on patrol, but they got their kits in the car. I'll meet them there. Police Dispatch, Main Channel, the 17th of March 2018, 5:18 a.m. PST. Dispatch, officers Albright, Franks, Glendale, Spencer, Wilkins, and Holder, drop to Channel 50. Police Dispatch, Channel 50, the 17th of March 2018, 5:18 a.m. PST. The officers sound off as the drop in. Captain Lang, you guys heard the call out. They're calling for a SWAT response. Drop what you're doing and get to Gresham Street. Police Dispatch, Channel 50, the 17th of March 2018, 5:42 a.m. PST. Captain Lang, dispatch, do we any kinds of plans for the house? Dispatch, no, we've been looking. I can't even figure out who the builder was. I don't actually have any homeowner or builder records for that whole street. Captain Lang, all right, thanks for looking. Officer Terence Wilkins, body cam feed, Transcribed, the 17th of March 2018, 5:41 a.m. PST. Officer Wilkins steps out of his vehicle and is joined by his partner, Officer Holder. They move to the trunk, unpack their SWAT gear, and get themselves equipped. Officer Wilkins, pretty crazy, huh? Officer Holder, man, I just hope George and Cindy are alright. Heard she was wounded. Officer Wilkins, we'll know real soon. Looks like we're staged up over there. Come on. Feed shows them move over to barricade set up near the house. Lang and the rest of the team are already there. Lang puts away his radio and addresses the team. Captain Lang, all right, we don't have a layout. The team grumbles. Captain Lang, yeah, it is what it is. Fortunately we have lots of windows. Franks and Albright, get your rifles and find a vantage. Franks take the front and right side, Albright take the back and left. Franks and Albright nod and run off. Captain Lang, Wilkins, you take lead on the breach. Stay sharp in there. Jared is rattled and he's not making sense. We don't know what we're walking into, but we all know Jared wouldn't fall apart easy. Stay in contact. Be careful. I know we don't get SWAT work often, but you guys are trained well. Just look out for each other and get our officers out of there. The team gives the affirmative and gathers around Wilkins. Officer Wilkins, okay, they've already cleared the perimeter. No one's seen any movement in the house. We're going in totally blind. Do not split up unless you get an order from me, or if a firefight opens up and you need to. Like Cap said, stay in contact, keep low, keep quiet. We're going to go in careful. Alright, let's stage up at the door. We're going in as soon as the sniper team is in position. Feed shows them stack up at the front door. Several minutes later Franks checks in, followed shortly by Albright. Officer Wilkins, we go. Feed shows Wilkins turn the knob and slowly push the door open. The team moves into the expansive hallway. The floor is dusty and covered in various kinds of debris. The wallpaper is torn and faded, and the light coming in from outside is muted by a heavy coating of dust and filth on the windows. Wilkins signals to the team and they stack up at the first door on the left. Wilkins pushes it open, shines a light inside. A bathroom can be seen. The tile floor is mostly broken up, the toilet is smashed, and there is an empty space along the wall with a pipe sticking out of it where you'd expect a tub or shower to be. The room is otherwise completely empty, with no closets or other spaces to hide in. Officer Wilkins whispers, bathroom, clear. They move to the first door on the right and follow the same procedure. The feed pans over what seems to be a coat room. Wilkins signals to the door and steps inside. There are racks of old coats, all in various states of extreme wear. Wilkins clears the room quickly and heads back out. Officer Wilkins whispers, side room 1, clear. Officer Benjamin Albright, body cam feed, transcribed, the 17th of March 2018, 5:52 a.m. PST. Officer Albright, in position. I got eyes on the living area and main hallway. Officer Wilkins, over radio, we go. Feed shows several minutes pass. Officer Albright, Wilkins? You guys heading in? Officer Franks, over radio, they walked in a minute or two ago. Officer Albright, I have eyes on the front door. It hasn't opened. Officer Franks, over radio, I watched them walk in. Sure you got the right door? Officer Albright, Captain, mind approaching the front door? Captain Lang, over radio, sure. Alright, I'm here. Officer Albright, there a big semicircular window on either side? Captain Lang, over radio, yeah. Officer Albright, wave through it. Yeah, I see you. That's the front door. It hasn't opened. Captain Lang, over radio, hold on. Officer Albright, okay, I see you opening the door. Hold on, suspect charging the door. Captain Lang, over radio, he's armed. Take, several shots are fired. Feed jolts as Albright takes the shot. Officer Albright, suspect down. You alright, Cap? Captain Lang, yeah, I was able to duck out of the doorway. Clearing suspect. Kill confirmed, weapon clear. Oh God. It's George. At 9:51 a.m. a larger team was sent in and cleared the house without incident. No additional suspects were found, nor was the original team. The coroner report verified the suspect to be Officer George Hannay, but the body was estimated to be between 70 and 80 years old. George turned 41 in October the previous year. There is no phone service to the house. A phone was found off the hook, and George Hannay's fingerprints were recovered from it. Blood on the floor nearby matches the blood type of Officer Cindy Tamlin. Investigation is ongoing. Story 3, Witch Hunt. Whoa, I am so glad this bullshit is over with. These has been, by far, some of the worst months of my life. This is including the summer when I was 14 and I got mono. I mean, I was laid up for a month and felt like absolute garbage. But I mean, at least people didn't die, you know? Let me start over and say that this all started because someone threw up a frog at lunch. It was a pretty nice day out, sun was shining, teachers weren't going crazy with the homework load yet. We were all in high spirits. I was making a quite impressive statue of mashed potatoes on my tray when Simone began choking. Simone wasn't eating that day, which adds to the whackness of that. She wasn't feeling too good after gym and was just having a juice box instead. But suddenly she just started gagging and grabbing at her throat, leaning over the table. Mabel patted her back and asked if she was okay, jokingly asked if there were bones in that juice. I think I could hear Simone gasp out, "There's something in my throat," before she yacked her guts all over the table. Gross, I know. What appeared to be mostly digested strawberry and cream oatmeal and granola splattered over the table, filling up poor Andrew's tray till it overflowed and almost spilled into his lap. Something brown and green flopped into the middle of it all. For a few moments, it was still. Then it twitched and got to its four legs, croaking loudly before hopping into Mabel's lap. We were all too stunned to react until the frog moved. Mabel screamed and threw it across the room, where it made a horrifying squelching sound as it smashed into the lunchroom wall. That poor frog. First it had to be vomited up and then met a frightening if not quick death by brick wall. Of course, the whole cafeteria exploded into complete craziness after that. I mean, it's not every day someone catapults a frog through the air, and the gym teacher had to be called in to calm everyone down. Coach Drake has one of this big, booming voices and can get the attention of a whole room with no effort. Everyone got their shit together while Mabel and Simone got marched to the principal's office. Thankfully neither of them got punished, although the principal didn't believe that Simone actually barfed up a frog. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable when you say it out loud like that, but point is that Simone wasn't pulling any funny business. The school went crazy with the news that she'd somehow puked a live frog. Our school has a newspaper run by a journalism club. Kathy Prince is the president, and I got to give it to her. She is passionate about the role. It's not really my thing. I've been in the gymnastics team since my freshman year, so I don't do clubs, but I can appreciate passion. Kathy ran nuts with the story, claiming that someone had put a curse on Simone because she beat them out for a spot on the gymnastics team. Which is ridiculous, but you have to understand, my school is really boring. We live in the middle of nowhere and our school team is called the Beavers. Yes, the boys really have too much fun with that one. This was big news. But as all big news goes, it dies out. Especially when there's bigger news at stake. Someone kidnapped Kathy's baby sister. Aubrey was the cutest lil thing. Kathy's mom Maggie was bragging about how Aubrey just won second place for cutest baby for this online contest and that she was going to appear in a magazine any day now. Poor thing just vanished out of her crib one night. Yeah, that was crazy. People don't just steal babies around here. I mean, someone did steal a toddler about 10 years ago, but all I cared about back then were crayons and purple dinosaurs. Sure, I knew about stranger danger, but if it didn't directly affect snack time, I didn't care. Sorry, off track. People say I have a mind like a squirrel. Maggie had a legit meltdown, offering thousands of dollars in rewards for any information for Aubrey's safe return, but there was really nothing to be gained. Aubrey was gone. There were no clues, no ransom note, it was all pointless. But this. I think it sent Kathy off the deep end, because she swore up and down that witches were to blame. I could understand if Kathy was 12, tweens have the nuttiest ideas, but she's 16. I mean, losing your little sister can really screw you up, but that was a little far-fetched. But her journalism club ran with it, and then started the witch hunt. And people started dying. Winterroth's real name was Amy. I think she just wanted to be unique. She was a weird kid, that was for sure. She tried to be goth, wearing these enormous boots and really cheap black lipstick, but she ended up looking kinda silly. She went through some really weird phases. I'd known her since we were in 6th grade. Back then she was obsessed with anime, so she'd speak in broken Japanese and had a really unsettling crush on the one Asian boy in our class. Poor Michael, we laugh about it now, but I swear he looked pained whenever he saw Winter. Last year Winter claimed to be catkin and would randomly meow and hiss at people in the halls while wearing fake cat ears. Oh, thank God she grew out of that this year. But even though she was weird and kinda obnoxious, I don't think she deserved to die. She was found at the bottom of a cliff at the nearby park by a few dog walkers. Her head had done an 180 on her neck, and she was apparently so beat up that her parents couldn't positively identify her at first. Someone had taken out a lot of rage on poor Winter. I went to her funeral. So did Michael. We told her mom that we were sorry she was gone and that we'd miss her. And strangely enough, I kinda do. It's weird not digging through my locker and hearing Winter hum off tune as she got her books. Sue me, I'm weird like that. The second victim was a guy, Eddie Smith. Eddie was probably one of Winter's only real close friends, and that was definitely because he was just as weird. He was actually 19 and had been held back a year. He wasn't too bright, but he was nice. He helped me find the computer class on my first day and then wrote me a creepy poem about how my whimsical appearance and dark, soulful eyes called to him. He stopped with that creepiness when he latched onto Winter. His goddess, apparently. He never had the guts to actually ask her out, but he'd be caught staring at her at really awkward times. He was the most crushed by her death. He stopped coming to school and his Facebook page had gone full emo. I messaged him because I genuinely thought he was going to kill himself. And apparently someone else did too. He was found hanging outside his house, but suicide was ruled out real fast after the autopsy. Again, same beating, except there was evidence someone had attempted to drown him as well. Or, well, I call it an attempt. It succeeded. I'd only been to one funeral before all this, and it was my aunt's. And in 1 year I've been to 2. I know what you're thinking. How do I know all these details? Well, Kathy's newspaper kept up with everything. I swear I lost my cool when she printed notes from Eddie's journal about how he loved Winter and how he hoped one day he'd notice someone as pitiful as him. Listen, there's a line, and you cross it when you're printing a dead kid's diary for a bunch of stupid teenagers to read. But I noticed that despite keeping up with every other little detail, she kept referring to Eddie's death as a suicide. Despite everyone else saying otherwise. I know, I should have gotten an adult. But I figured if I grabbed Simone and Michael first to be cool when I went to go investigate Kathy's house. It was dark, obviously, it was past midnight and no one would be awake on a school night. Michael was humming the Mission Impossible theme as we crept around her house to the backyard, which was shielded by a suburban white picket fence. Michael picked me up so I could peer over, and I swear to God I nearly shit myself. I wouldn't admit that lightly either. It was Kathy and a few of her friends, and between them was a girl tied up on the ground having a total blubbering meltdown. I recognized her almost immediately. Teresa. Teresa was different. She never made eye contact, she hated being touched, and she was obsessed with dinosaurs. I just casually mentioned that I liked the long-necked dino sewn carefully onto her backpack, and she launched into a 30-minute talk about what species it was and how long ago it lived and all these other random facts. It was a brontosaurus. It was her favorite. Right now Teresa was freaking terrified. I couldn't even understand what she was saying, it was pure nonsense. Kathy stood in front of her, cradling a red gas can in her arms. "This is your last chance. In front of God, confess your sins and tell me where my sister is," she hissed. My blood ran cold as she splashed Teresa with gasoline. One of her friends had a matchbox ready to strike. Teresa's bottom lip quivered before she bawled. Kathy slapped her before tying a bandana around her mouth to silence her. "If the witch won't confess, that means the devil's really got claws in her," she said through gritted teeth, snatching the matchbox from the other's hands. "We're not actually going to burn her, right? We can't make that look like suicide," the friend said, suddenly looking squicked out. Kathy punched her so fast that I blinked and missed it. "We're surrounded by them. Witches. She is one of them. If she does not confess, she is a witch. I know it." She screeched like a banshee, striking a match. I launched myself over the fence and tackled Kathy to the ground. I've been in gymnastics since I was old enough to walk and can support someone standing on my shoulders. I'm not exactly a wimp. I don't remember what I was screaming at Kathy, only that I was beating her face in and hollering loud enough to wake the dead. The thing is, in a close-knit neighborhood, neighbors hear everything. Especially on a night this quiet. I remember lights flashing on in houses down the street. I remember Michael trying to tear me off of Kathy. I remember Kathy begging for mercy. I wasn't in control of myself until an adult actually managed to rip me off of Kathy's unconscious body. Don't worry, this story has a happy ending. Kathy didn't die, but she did confess to killing Winter and Eddie, all because witches. Poor Teresa confessed that Kathy had lured her there with promises of a sleepover, and Teresa has a rough enough time fitting in. I'm inviting her into my friends group if she wants in. She might not be a gymnast, but she's a sweet girl. Kathy's friends are going down too, along with, plot twist, Kathy's mom. Maggie was in on it. She was the one who hauled up Eddie's body to make it look like he hung himself. We're gonna have a nice memorial for Winter and Eddie. Maybe in whatever weirdo afterlife there is for them they can be together. Best part is, I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge with the rest of my coven. Listen, if there's already witch burning going on, the rest of us have to go. They missed us, sure, but how lucky are they going to get next time? It was pure luck that Simone was the one to cough up the frog. We're all betting Andrew's the one who threw that hex out there. With her being a frog barfer and the rest of us fitting the norm, we weren't suspected. No, witch burners go after the outcasts first. They always do. But we can't rely on that saving us every time. My mom knows better, after she lost her sister. I'm inviting along Teresa, she can come or go. I feel after all the BS that happened to her I think she'll love to tag along and start over again. Not to mention mom's letting me pick Aubrey's new name. She can finally be out and about as my baby sister. Should I just respell it as Aubrey or pick something in memorial of the fallen like Edie's or Amy? Be sure to give your honest opinion. I gotta go, back to packing. Bye bye. Story 4, a message for the thrill seekers. Hello. I have some important information I'd like to relay to you. I'll try to keep it brief. Everybody likes getting scared from time to time. The eerie, spine-tingling feeling that crawls like a hideous animal down our necks gives us a rush of adrenaline. We can experience the emotion of being scared from our living room, from our sofa, even our dreams. Many people experience being scared from their safest place. They do it for pleasure, tasting only a faint flavor of fear, just enough to satisfy their cravings, before returning to the peaceful, normal world in which they dwelt before. But you, my fellow, are not one of those people. You are a daredevil. A thrill seeker. You're made of stronger stuff. You laugh in the face of those poor replicas of horror. It takes much more to scare you than that. You're looking for the stronger stuff, I'd imagine. The real deal. You're looking for true, untamed, unpredictable terror, and you don't care what cost is involved to attain it. You don't just want to flirt with death, you want to make passionate love to it. Well, have I gotten your attention? Listen closely. Expect a phone call sometime soon. Yes, I know who you are, probably better than most. I was just like you once. The call will be from a number you don't recognize, or, perhaps, from one that you do. I highly suggest you take every call you can for a while, even if it means answering to a few telemarketers. If you miss it, don't worry, but do call back. It's rude to keep someone waiting. This call will have no sound, or rather, no noticeable sound. All I can tell you is that you'll know it's the one. You'll feel a certain presence on the other end. All you need to do is say, "I accept." That's it. 2 simple words, and the game will begin. I can't speak to how fun the game will be, but from then on, you'll be playing. What are the rules? Just this one. Stay alive. Easy, right? I never said this game was hard. I only said that you'll be terrified. The only thing keeping you from winning is your own emotions, and your opponent knows your emotions just as intimately as you yourself. The game will last a few days, or it could last a few months. It's a lot like chess, actually. The length of the game depends primarily on the skill of the players. Your opponent is a very experienced player, but don't let that defeat your spirit. After all, your opponent has played against many others, but never before against you. All that being said, here are a few strategies which I think will help you. At some point, you'll come to a path with a bright road and a dark road. Don't pick arbitrarily. Neither is necessarily correct, and neither is necessarily wrong. You have to look at the 2 options deeper than face value. Demons can clothe themselves in both light and darkness, so don't look for what is bright or what is not, look for the demon himself. After all, a person in a mask is much less startling when you know who is wearing it. Don't trust the voices you hear. That's such a newbie mistake, and rookies like that are no fun to watch. When you follow the voices, you're just letting something else tell you what to do. You're enslaved to something you can't see or even know. The people who listen to the voices are always the first to lose. Simply put, do not listen to anyone who claims to be playing the game with you. They are lying. I don't care who it is, get away from them as fast as you can. Sometimes, days will go by where you're still waiting for your opponent to make a move. On my word, it's not a stalemate, and your opponent has not stopped playing. Don't give up. You'll know when the game is over. And if you ever reach that point, you'll wish it could have gone on forever. Finally, and most importantly, you cannot quit this game once you've begun. You're in this far. You should have weighed the consequences long ago, before your addiction to terror began. In this game, just like any other, losing is much better than quitting, because you fought hard until the bitter end. Nothing short of pure hell awaits those impudent cowards who think they can quit, so if you feel weak or weary, let that thought spur you to play harder. If you finished the game a winner, congratulations. You've beaten the odds, and, most importantly, your fears. You'll finish life a person with a true fortitude of character. You'll be tough as iron and more prudent than the greatest poets and philosophers. You'll see a whole new meaning to life, and you'll learn how to stop worrying. After all, why worry when you've seen much worse? However, if you lose the game, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Good luck. Story 5, Suddenly, everything was gone. It started off like any regular Tuesday. My mom was in the living room with my dad drinking their coffee and watching the morning news. I groggily stumbled into the kitchen to make my lunch for the day and I noticed that we were out of bread. "Mom," I said just loud enough for her to hear me in the other room, "we're out of bread. I just bought some yesterday, Benny. It should be on the counter." I looked all over the kitchen. I don't see it. "Oh, well, I'll pick more up this afternoon. Just take some money and buy something at school." My mom walked to the kitchen to give me a $10 bill. I wrote off the bread disappearing as my mom simply leaving it at the grocery store or accidentally giving it to my Aunt Sharon when she picked up some milk and eggs for her yesterday. Looking back, that should have been my first sign that something was terribly wrong. I made it to school without issue. As I sat in my first class, my teacher decided to give out a pop quiz. I reached into my backpack to find a pencil, but found nothing. I knew I had one, yet it wasn't there. I raised my hand. "Mr. Gilmore?" "Yes, Ben?" He raised an eyebrow at me. We're about to start the quiz. I can't find my pencil. What did it do? Disappear into thin air? I was silent here, Ben. He trudged over to his desk and pulled a pencil out of his cabinet. He placed it on my desk and walked back to the front of the classroom. Now, if there aren't any more questions, the pop quiz will begin. There is no talking, no cellular devices, and no sharing answers. You may start the quiz now. I was so engrossed in my quiz to realize what was happening around me until it became obvious. The desks around me were disappearing one by one. As it would vanish, the kid in it would fall to the ground, almost like something you would see in a cartoon. Everyone gave each other a terrified look. A kid stood up in the back of the classroom. What's going on? Another kid spoke up too. Are we dreaming? One kid even slapped himself to see if he was in a dream. Soon, there were endless questions. At least, until Mr. Gilmore disappeared. After he vanished, we were all at loss for words. None of us could process it. We didn't have long to anyways. My classmates started to disappear soon after our teacher did. All of the posters and items around the room disappeared too. I ran out of that classroom as fast as I could. The lockers and light fixtures were vanishing as I flew towards the main door. A hall monitor tried to stop me from running, but she also faced the same fate as the rest of my peers. Not knowing what else to do, I ran home to tell my mom and dad what happened. When I turned the corner near my driveway, I froze. My house was gone. Story 6, The Promise Part 2 Conclusion. I wanted to die. More than anything. I kept picturing the look on Brody's face. He was the only one who'd believed in me, the closest thing I had to a friend. Now he thought I was some sort of crack whore. By the time I hit the curve, I was doing 70. When the rear end came around and I started to spin, I closed my eyes and pictured Lane's face. Suddenly, his voice filled my head, shouting instructions, as clear as if he were in the seat beside me. When I opened my eyes again, my car was sitting neatly on the side of the road, just past the white crosses. I opened my door and nearly fell out onto the shoulder. I half stumbled, half crawled over to the memorial and collapsed in front of Lane's cross, sobbing. Avery. Avery, are you okay? I rolled onto my back and tried to scramble away. Brody fell to his knees beside me and reached for me. Hey, it's me. I slapped his hands. What are you doing here? Why are you following me? What just happened? He looked at the crosses. His gaze lingered on Lane's. What is this place? My brother died here. I never talked about my personal life. Ever. But once I started talking, I couldn't stop. I told Brody everything, about Lane, about Darius, my mother, even about Rattlesnake Guy. When I finally stopped, I was afraid to look at him. Now he would know I was trash, just like I'd tried to tell him. He wrapped his arms around me. I froze for a moment, then sagged against him. His arms tightened around me. What happened to Lane was not your fault. Why would you think that? I was the oldest. I was in charge. We were supposed to stay home. You were kids, Avery. This wasn't anyone's fault. He paused. What I just saw, with the curve, you do that every year. I didn't answer. He kissed the top of my head. You are the strongest person I've ever known. I gave a strangled laugh. I'm weak. When I went into that curve tonight, I wanted to die. I'm so alone, Brody. He gave me a fierce hug. You are not alone. Not anymore. Let's get out of here, okay? We're going back to my place. I wasn't sure what showed on my face, but he shook his head. Not for that. I'm not letting you stay alone tonight. He stood and reached to help me up. I took his hand. He smiled and held me to my feet. I brushed a kiss on my fingertips and pressed it to Lane's cross, then slid under the arm Brody offered. His place wasn't much bigger than mine, though his furniture was better. I'd muddied my clothes, so he found me one of his shirts and a pair of drawstring shorts to put on. We talked for hours, about my family, about his. I learned that money didn't necessarily buy a happy childhood. Even when there was nothing left to say, I felt comfortable. Safe. I hadn't felt that in years. I fell asleep with my head on his shoulder. I woke sometime later, lying on the couch. Brody lay beside me, spooning my back, his arms around me. When I stirred, he mumbled, "Don't go." Lying there, wrapped in the heat of his body, breathing in his scent, I didn't want to go. I twisted around and kissed him. He kissed me back, rolling on top of me. But when I reached to tug his shirt over his head, he stopped me. "Avery, please," I said. "I want this." He led me to his bedroom. That night, I broke one of my rules. I didn't leave. I woke the next morning and reached for him. His side of the bed was empty. I snagged a t-shirt off the floor and went to search for him. I found him in front of the stove, singing and dancing in his boxers, making breakfast. I pressed my fingertips to my lips, but failed to suppress my smile. Apparently, he didn't hear my approach. I witnessed a rather inspired performance of Prince's song, "Kiss." I laughed, feeling happy for the first time in a long time. He whirled, but didn't seem embarrassed. He placed a plate of pancakes on the table and seized me, dancing me around his tiny kitchen. "Good morning, beautiful," he said. "Good morning." I glanced at the plates of food covering the kitchen table and raised an eyebrow. "You having company over?" "Ha. Ha." Sunlight streaming through his kitchen window made his eyes look blue and bright as a June sky. "Baby, I am hungry." He winked at me and said, "And maybe I wanted to impress you a little." I grinned and draped my arms around his neck. "Oh, I'm impressed. Mostly that you have this much food in your house, considering we both work at the same place." I winced. "Well, maybe we used to. I guess maybe we're fired." I took care of it. I talked to Charlie, told him you had an emergency and it's all good. "We have tonight off, too." "What?" I gasped. "Charlie hates me." "No, he doesn't. You never miss work. Besides, how would he replace both of us? You're amazing." He smiled. "So, since we have tonight off, how about that date?" "Date? You know, dinner, dancing? Something besides burned corn dogs and dancing around the jukebox at Char Bar." "But that's my favorite." "I know. I may have set the bar too high, but I'll do my best to impress you." "You already impress me." And he did. Brody was a nice guy. A good man. When I found out I was pregnant 6 weeks later, he didn't say, "Are you going to keep it? Or is it mine?" He said, "Marry me." "Brody, I don't know if it's yours. I won't put this on you if it's not yours. I don't care if it is. It will be. We will never know any differently, and the baby won't either. I love you, Avery. We can be the parents we always needed. Marry me." But I couldn't. Not without knowing. I talked to my doctor and he scheduled an amniocentesis when I was far enough along. The day we met the doctor to discuss the results, I was a wreck. I'd given up cigarettes the day I learned I was pregnant, and my nerves were shot. I'd been unable to sleep that night and, while staring into Brody's face in the moonlight, I'd made a decision. If the baby was his, I'd marry him, and I'd do my damnedest to be a good wife and mother. If it wasn't, I'd leave in the middle of the night and never look back. I was not going to tie him to another man's child. Brody tried to make small talk while we waited, but I couldn't hold up my end. Both me and my baby had so much to lose. I wanted Brody to be the father so badly. Not for his money, or even his support. One day, this child would want to know about its father. I did not want to have to tell it that I didn't even know his name. The doctor looked at Brody and held out his hand. "Congratulations, Dad." Brody's grin lit up that office. He pumped the doctor's hand and then turned to hug me. So, I agreed to marry him. On our wedding day, Brody punched his best friend in the face for telling him he couldn't turn a whore into a housewife. Maybe he was right. I didn't know. All I knew was that I would do my best not to let him down. Not to let either of them down. I didn't know if I was capable of love, but the day I looked into Brody's shining eyes over that surgical mask when he held our son for the first time, I knew I loved them both. I couldn't say it, however, but I hoped he knew. He stood by my side when I cut ties with my mother. My son was my priority now. I could no longer try to help someone who wasn't interested in helping herself. I also would never have my child around Darius. Lucas was a difficult baby. Brody and I learned how to live on little sleep. A colicky infant stage progressed to night terrors by age 3. That was the age he began to talk a lot more, and also when I started to suspect there was something terribly wrong with my son. One night, as he played with one of his toy cars, he looked at Brody and said, "His name is Dale." Brody glanced at the black car with the number 3 on the door and looked at Lucas in surprise. "Yeah, that's Dale Earnhardt's car. How did you know that?" Lucas shrugged and said, "My other dad told me." Brody stared at me. "Other dad?" I shrugged, but I saw the tension in his face. "Who's your other dad, Lucas?" he asked. Lucas wouldn't answer. "Can I see you in the kitchen?" I asked. "You can't turn a whore into a housewife, right?" I said, when we were out of Lucas' earshot. He reached for me and I jerked away. "I've never cheated on you. I've never even considered it. I care about you." Brody sighed. "I know you do." "I'm sorry. It just caught me off guard, I guess." He pulled me to him and this time I didn't fight it. "I love you, Avery. And I know you love me, too. I only wish you could say it." I did, too. There was this feeling that, if I did, something horrible would happen. One night, while Brody lay across my lap, I traced the words on his back with my fingertips. I thought he was sleeping, but he kissed my thigh and said, "I love you, too." My mother called me a week before the 10th anniversary of Lane's death, begging to see Lucas. She told me she'd been clean for 2 years, and that she'd kicked Darius out the same day I had told her goodbye. I told her I'd think about it and disconnected the call. That night, I pulled down an old photo album from the closet. I'd stolen it from my mother's house before I moved out. Lucas climbed into my lap and Brody looked over my shoulder while I flipped through it. Lucas pointed at a picture of a 10-year-old Lane and said, "That's me." "No, honey, that's your Uncle Lane. He's in heaven now." Lucas ignored me, poring over the pictures with an intensity rarely seen in the rambunctious toddler. He pointed at another picture. "That's my old dad." "That's my dad," I said. He looked at me with his bright blue eyes and said, "I know, Mommy." That week, Brody called me from a restaurant parking lot. I heard Lucas in the background, having a meltdown. They'd been fishing and stopped to get lunch. "Hey, honey," Brody said. "Do you want us to bring you something?" "I'm good." "Why's he crying?" "You'll never believe it. He's crying because the waitress took away his corn cob." "His, what?" "A corn cob. He started screaming that he wanted me to make him a pizza pie or something, like his old dad did." Lucas screamed in the background. "Peace pie. Peace pie. Do you have any idea what he's talking about, babe?" "No, none." But something was there. Some memory tugged at the back of my mind. Brody sighed. "Okay, well, we'll be home in about an hour. I love you." He hung up instead of waiting on the reply he knew wasn't coming. I stared at my phone, then impulsively called my mother. "Mom, I have a weird question about Lane." "Okay," my mother said slowly. "Did Dad ever make something for him, out of corn cobs?" "Yeah. He made these pipes, out of dried out corn cobs and sticks. Lane thought he was big stuff, clamping it between his teeth and walking around like Popeye." "I don't remember that." "Well, you were a girl. Your father didn't believe in little girls even pretend smoking. Did he call them something?" "He called them peace pipes." He'd grab his cigarettes, hand Lane his pipe and say, "Come on, son, let's go smoke our peace pipes." Why do you ask? This was not something I wanted to run by my mother. An old memory, I guess. They made small talk. My mother told me about the latest sobriety coin she'd earned and said, "Avery, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry I didn't believe you about Darius." Mom, I have to go," I said. "I'll call you later." Some things I wasn't ready to forgive, or even talk about. Rummaging through the freezer, I took an ear of corn from a freezer bag and boiled it. Then I shaved the corn from it with a knife and placed the cob on the back porch to dry. I made a pipe and sat it on the entertainment center. Lucas didn't notice it until that afternoon, after supper. He yelled, "Peace by. Peace by," until Brody followed his gaze and got it down. He shot me a questioning look, then handed it to Lucas. Lucas stuck the end of it in his mouth and beamed at them. That night after I put him to bed, Brody and I discussed it. "What are you saying?" he asked. "I know it's odd, but you don't really think I don't know," I admitted. "But he says such strange things sometimes." Even Brody had no explanation for what happened later that week. They were talking, laughing, on the way to the zoo. I was driving. In the back seat, Lucas said, "Mama." Brody was in the middle of the story he was telling, so I glanced in the rear view mirror at Lucas, but didn't reply Mama. He cried again, then, "Damn it, Timmy," I said. "Stop." I slammed on the brakes, and was nearly rear-ended by the car behind us. It swerved around us. Brody and I looked at each other, then at Lucas. The blare of a horn jerked my attention back to the front. I looked up just in time to see the car that passed us sail through a green light and get T-boned by a semi. Metal screamed. The semi carried the little red car through the stoplight and crashed into a pickup on the other side. "Call 911. Brody shouted and bailed out of the car. Shaking, I did as instructed. When I disconnected the call, I twisted to look at Lucas and said, "What did you call me?" He looked out the window. "Lucas, answer me. Why did you call me Timmy? That's your name." Nearly an hour passed before they could leave the scene. Brody climbed back in the car, shaken. I asked him about the people in the car and he shook his head. Lucas lay slumped in his car seat, asleep. "What just happened, Avery?" he asked. "Do you realize if you hadn't stopped, if Lucas hadn't screamed, that would have been us? That light was green." I burst into tears, and he grabbed me. I buried my face against his neck and sobbed. I waited until we were home, until Lucas was watching cartoons in another room, to pour myself a drink and sit at the kitchen table with Brody. "Did you hear what he called me?" I asked. Brody gave a puzzled laugh. Timmy? Jimmy?" To be honest, I was more concerned about the other word he said. I asked him why he called me Timmy and he said that was my name. "Brody, no one's called me that since my dad died." He reached for my glass and took a long swallow. "Your dad called you Timmy?" Tears stung my eyes. I was that kid, you know, the kid who was always getting into trouble, always getting hurt, or stuck, or something. Lane would always run for help. My dad would look at my mom, sigh, and say, "Look, honey, here comes Lassie. Guess Timmy's fallen into the well again." How would Lucas know that? Brody looked at me for a long moment, then at his lookalike son playing in the living room. He shook his head. "I don't know." Maybe he said something else. Maybe we misunderstood. He said Timmy. I know he said Timmy. But even if he didn't, why was he screaming at me to stop? He couldn't have seen that truck. "Did you ask him?" I did, but he wouldn't answer me. Brody called their son into the kitchen. "Lucas, why did you call your mom that name in the car?" The boy dropped his head. "It's her name." "Who said that was her name?" "My old dad." I felt Brody's eyes on me, but I was watching Lucas. "Why did you yell at me to stop?" Lucas looked at his shoes. "'Cause I'm supposed to protect you." I closed my eyes. In my head, I heard Lane say, "I'll always protect you." I began to cry. "Mommy, don't," Lucas pleaded, tugging at my sleeve. I found I was afraid to look at him. "Why don't you go play, bud?" Brody said. I opened my eyes and stared at my husband. He looked as scared and confused as I felt. After that day, Lucas didn't speak of his old dad, and after a couple of months, I almost forgot. He was just Lucas again, a handsome little boy with eyes as blue as a June sky and a cowlick in the crown of his head, like his father. That fall, I decided I wanted to visit my mother and put flowers on Lane's grave. Brody wanted to go with me, but I told him it was something I needed to do alone at least the first time. Lucas was asleep when we passed the curve going in. Yellow leaves decorated the white crosses. This time, I didn't mind. When I pulled up at my childhood home, I was surprised to see the yard neatly kept and the flower beds exploding with color. My mother sat in a chair on the front porch. She walked out to greet us and stood by the car while I roused my sleeping son. "Oh, my mother said, placing a trembling hand to his cheek. "Avery, he's beautiful." Lucas blinked at the older woman and his small face creased in a frown. "You look different." "Different from what?" my mother asked with a laugh. "Did you show him pictures?" I looked at Lucas and thought of Lane. Of how different he'd think our mother looked. The past 11 years had not been kind. "Come in," my mother said. "I made lunch." "Mommy, no," Lucas whispered. "The bad man." My blood ran cold, but I patted my son's back and whispered, "The bad man is gone." The rest of visit passed uneventfully, though Lucas was unusually quiet and clung to my side. At least until we walked to the cemetery. He ran ahead of us, chasing a butterfly. But he stopped and ran his fingers over the etching of one tombstone. I realized it belonged to Jimi Hendrix. He paused and gave it a thoughtful look, then he ran ahead. He stopped at Lane's grave. My mother shot me a surprised look, but I ignored her. Lucas played around the tombstones for a while, but he grew increasingly agitated and whiny. "Mom, I need to go," I said finally. On the way out, Lucas began to cry as they approached the curve. "Timmy, stop," he said softly. Without hesitation, I pulled over. I unbuckled my seatbelt, then extracted Lucas from his car seat. Hand in hand, we walked over to the row of crosses. Lucas sat on the ground, in the spot where I had watched my brother take his last breath. My son looked up at me tearfully. "I'm sorry, Mommy. I fell asleep and I couldn't find you when I woke up. I got lost." "It's okay," I whispered, feeling the tears slip down my cheeks. "It's not," he insisted. "I promised to protect you." I folded the small boy in my arms. "You did more than that. You saved me. You forgive me?" "Of course," I said, squeezing him tight. "You saved me." And he wasn't the only one. Brody worked late that night. Lucas had been in bed for hours when I saw his headlights turn into the drive. I ran out to meet him. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "I love you," I blurted. He stared at me for a long moment, then he gave me one of those dazzling smiles. "Say it again." I did, then I kissed him. Lucas's night terrors stopped after that night, and he never mentioned his old life again. I hoped Lane had somehow found peace, because at last I had. Story 7, my sister is dating a douchebag, but I know how to take care of it. Names have been changed for privacy reasons. I'm writing this because I fear I may have gone too far this time, and I want everyone else practicing black or white magic to take heed and learn from my mistakes. I've been practicing witchcraft for a while now. Nothing too crazy, money spells here and there, sometimes memory spells when I embarrass myself in front of a crowd of people. But lately I've been wanting to learn more. My sister, Alex, is pregnant and her boyfriend, Dan, is a total jerk. My heart hurts for her and the baby knowing that he won't be a loving father. My family is very close, we all are very protective over each other, so when I heard Dan had started to get physically abusive with Alex, I knew I had to do something. Alex told me in the midst of tears that Dan had come home from the bar one night and instantly started yelling. He was slurring words left and right. When she told him he should drink some water and go to bed, he threw a beer bottle full force at her. He had broken her nose. That didn't faze him though. She started to cry and apologize, as if it was her fault somehow, and he continued throwing random household items at her. She ran out the door and drove to my house to tell me. I hated that son of a bitch and wanted him gone. Don't get me wrong, I don't want the baby to be without a father. I also don't want the chance of Dan becoming abusive to the child though. My sister isn't very strong-willed, so she would never leave him, especially now that she's pregnant. I started to research spells I could cast to maybe make him a better person, or give my sister the strength to leave him. I wasn't content with either of those options however. Then I found one, a spell to cast on one thing that Dan loves more than anything so that he will have to watch it slowly wither away. This would hurt him for sure, cause him to feel the pain my sister feels. The best part, it was incurable. I know he doesn't truly love Alex. If he did, he wouldn't dare raise his voice at her and say the things he does, never mind lay a hand on her. I was sure that the one thing he loved most would be some prostitute he hooks up with when Alex is working late. Or maybe his right hand would become paralyzed. This small spell would be the beginning to making Dan's life a living hell. If this didn't do it, well, I could conjure up something else down the road if need be. So I started. I got together all of the ingredients I needed, basic spices, some candles, and a lock of Dan's hair, which wasn't hard to get. I just took some off of his razor when I went to visit Alex. I was invigorated, I couldn't wait to begin. I sat on the floor of my living room with the ingredients in a bowl, lit a candle with the spell carved into it, and as I was chanting the words, let the wax drip into the bowl. I felt a cool breeze, waited a few minutes, and knew the spell had been completed. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders and texted my sister telling her I would be coming over tomorrow, to see if my spell had any immediate effect on Dan yet. I went to bed feeling content with myself for doing my damnedest to try and protect my sister. The next morning I woke up a little groggy. Nothing too bad, just made a pot of coffee and planned my day. At around 11 a.m. I headed over to Alex and Dan's place. I still felt like something was off with my head, as the grogginess hadn't gone away. I shook it off and knocked on their front door. Dan answered. Perfect. Hey Dan, I said, maybe a little too cheery. Oh. Hi Britt, he said looking down at his shoes. I walked in past him as I asked, so, how's everything going? He always acted shy around me, I don't know why. I hated it though. With a passion. Same as always I guess. Alex is upstairs decorating the nursery if you wanna go up. I didn't want to just yet, I wanted to continue interrogating him. Yeah, in a minute, I said smiling coyly. Are you okay Dan? You seem a little off. Oh yeah, haha, I'm alright. Just haven't seen you in a while, that's all. You only ever come around when Alex is home, he replied. I got an unsettling feeling in my stomach, I started to sweat slightly and said, yeah haha, I'm always busy, you know. I'm gonna go see Alex now. With that I jogged up the stairs, went into the bathroom and puked. I wasn't sure what was going on with me, but I knew I hated Dan. He always tried to act so innocent around me, as if he wasn't beating my sister come nighttime. What a piece of shit. I wiped off my mouth and rinsed with some mouthwash, fixed my hair, and headed to the nursery. Looking at all the baby decorations made me so happy, but also kind of jealous. I was older than Alex and I didn't see children in my near future at all. I wasn't really the dating type, maybe I could adopt though? Alex saw me standing in the doorway and ran over to hug me. Hey Britt. How's the nursery look? Do you like it? Is this too much pink? I mean, it's a girl so probably not, but I don't know what to do, you think? Mom told me to add some purple, I don't know about that though. Maybe some grey? I could hardly get a word in before she added, Britt, you don't look so good. Want some water? I shook my head no and sat in the rocking chair. Then responded, I think grey would look nice with the pink, purple is too cheesy. She beamed with excitement and let out a squeal as she continued decorating. I really love my sister. Unconditionally. She's always been my best friend. Growing up I knew she looked up to me, so I made sure never to do something I wouldn't want her to do. And now she was with dickwad Dan. I guess I had fallen asleep in the rocking chair because next thing I know, I open my eyes and I'm alone in the nursery. My stomach still churned with the same feeling from yesterday. I went downstairs and Alex giggled, morning sleepyhead. Had I really slept into the next day? That wasn't like me at all. I kissed her forehead as if she was still 5 years old and I was 10. She smiled and I told her I had to get home to feed my cat. She gave me a travel cup of coffee and waved goodbye as I walked out the door. Before I could even make it to my car I had doubled over, vomiting violently. I hadn't eaten anything, so there really wasn't much to come back up, except for black liquid that looked like tar. I ran to my car before Alex could see me and start to worry. She didn't need that stress while carrying a baby. I drove home barely able to keep more of that liquid from coming up. When I arrived home I immediately started a health spell. After successfully completing a spell there's a sense of contentment and quiet that fills my house. I can't quite describe it. It's peaceful. This time though, it didn't work. I tried it 3 times. Nothing. I shook it off and told myself it was because I was sick and I couldn't focus properly. That must be it. I fed my cat Orion. No, not a black cat. He's orange, not all witches have black cats, and went upstairs to take a nap. I woke up the next day in a sweat. For some reason I couldn't remember anything. Where I was, who I was, or what had happened. I focused really hard and it slowly started coming back to me. Had I really slept through the whole day and night again? Then I remembered a dream I had. I was laying on the floor of the nursery in Alex's house, choking on that black liquid. My eyes started blacking out and I was heaving uncontrollably. Before I went completely unconscious I heard a baby crying. Alex wasn't due for another 2 months. That's weird, I thought in my dream. Then I saw Dan out of the corner of my eye running into the nursery. He tried to shake me awake but it was too late. I was out cold, but I could still hear and feel things. I felt him check my pulse, then heard him scream no, no. No, no. He got quiet and then whispered into my ear, I've always loved you. That's when I woke up. I was in shock, but before I had another second to think about it I was throwing up the black stuff again. For about 10 minutes this time, it didn't stop pouring out of me until I could hardly breathe. Then I started to cry. I cried because I knew that dream was a premonition of what was yet to come. I cried because I hated Dan so much. And I cried because I knew there was nothing I could do to stop it. After all, the spell was incurable. That was 2 months ago, so I am sitting here writing this, in my niece's nursery as she's napping in her crib. She was born 3 days ago at 1:23 p.m., the same time as me and on my birthday. I remember thinking I would be so excited about that if I wasn't so sick. But now I'm here, in her nursery and I know what's coming. I'm telling all of you to let you know, don't do this spell. Especially if you don't know what will happen for sure. I can feel the black liquid rising up in my throat now, I know what to expect. And I want to say to my sister Alex and my new baby niece Annalise, I love you. And I'm sorry. And Dan, fuck you. Story 8, Val. With this smile, doctor, I can get away with anything. Her upper incisors flashed slyly between her lips when she spoke, as though taunting me. Were they especially sharp, or were my eyes playing tricks on me? I gazed at her across the cold metal table and decided with a distinct nervousness that I was unsure. She had been brought in 3 hours ago, clothes spattered with rain and blood. The deputies who arrested her informed me she had been found by a patrol in one of the many back alleys of our beautiful city, crouched over a freshly mutilated corpse. She was reportedly calm when she was brought in, a small smile on her face, and remained calm as she was processed and questioned. Not that she answered, of course. The words she spoke to me were the first words she had spoken since she had been discovered in the gloom of the alley. She had a truly disconcerting habit of staring, silent and unblinking, when she was questioned. It had unnerved the members of the 49th precinct enough that they had eventually called me, a psychologist, to try to reach her. I agreed to give it my best. I'm not an investigator. My training is in psychology and I happily maintain my own independent practice. However, I've always had a keen interest in criminology and briefly considered it as a career when I was young. I don't remember exactly when this interest became an obsession, but for a large chunk of my young adulthood, it was. Even now, after settling into psychology, the minds of criminals are especially fascinating to me. I lend myself to police investigations whenever they want, or more often need, my help. This case, a young girl accused of a disconcertingly terrible crime, seemed of interest to me and I jumped at the chance to examine her case. I considered her words, her first since being arrested, my fingers clasped in front of me on the table. I caught myself worrying the thick ring I always wore on my right ring finger, twisting it around as I contemplated my options. I clasped my hands tighter, forcing myself to stop. She noticed. "Do I make you nervous, doctor?" she asked, sounding amused. I started at her voice, breaking the silence of the room, and chuckled slightly. "Most things do," I admitted. "I have a somewhat nervous disposition." "Is that right?" "Yes. In fact, I never seem to be quite comfortable in any given situation." "Is that something you're familiar with?" "No." I looked at her for a long moment and wondered. Was this girl guilty of the things they accused her of? She certainly seemed odd, maybe even sinister, but evil? I wasn't sure. I pressed on. "I'd like to ask you some questions," I said finally. She raised a perfectly arched brow. "I was under the impression you already were," she replied dryly. I forced a small laugh. "Quite. I'd like to ask you a few more, then. Let's begin with your name, please. I understand you never provided one to the police." She seemed to consider my question deeply, her eyes shifting slightly away from my face and momentarily breaking her disquieting gaze. "Names are powerful things, doctor," she said airily. I inclined my head slightly in agreement, urging her to continue for this purpose. "Then, my name is Val." "Okay, wonderful. Val, what did you mean by your first comment, that you can get away with anything?" I inquired curiously. "I meant what I said," she replied, boredom creeping into her voice. "It's a funny thing, for a blood-stained girl being questioned in a cold interrogation room to seem bored." "So, your belief is that the rules don't apply to you, that you can smile your way out of anything?" I asked, mildly incredulous obviously. "That's quite the belief." "How does that work, Val?" "Why, doctor," she said innocently, "just like this." And she smiled. The next thing I remember is standing outside the station in the chill October rain, bag in hand. I looked around in a daze, unsure of how I got there. I checked my watch. Only 30 minutes had passed since my entrance into the station to assess Val. I glanced up, feeling no less confused and with the beginnings of a headache creeping in, tightening my temples. As my gaze traveled around me, I noticed a familiar figure sauntering confidently away into the crowd of people. "Val." I called, my brain still seemingly unable to fully process my surroundings. She glanced back. "Hello, doctor," she said, sounding amused. "Back so soon?" "Back?" I asked, confused. "To the land of the living," she replied easily. "To the land? What are you talking about? What did you do to me?" I demanded angrily, feeling sick. "All I did was smile," she said. And with that, she turned and disappeared into the throng of humanity. I stood there, dumbfounded, my brain seemingly unable to process this exchange. Finally, soaked through with rainwater and feeling fundamentally shaken, I began my journey home. That night, despite copious amounts of alcohol, I couldn't seem to let go of my encounter. What had she done to me? Why did I let her go? How did I let her go? And why couldn't I remember any of it? I became more and more frustrated as the night grew darker, until I was finally overcome by the need to sleep, and I fell into a restless slumber full of nightmares and disquiet. The next morning, I woke up feeling as though I hadn't slept at all. My head was pounding, and my mouth was dry, like I had slept with cotton balls stuffed in my cheeks. I spent a few miserable hours curled on the couch and unable to move, during which time I resolved to find out what Val had done to me. I finally roused myself from my stupor and began my search. My first stop, the 49th Precinct. "Good morning, Henry," I greeted the officer at the front desk. "Oh, good morning, doctor," he replied cheerfully. Henry was always cheerful. "What can I do for you?" "I need to see the file on the suspect that was brought in connection to the mutilated body that was found yesterday evening." Henry looked confused. "But doctor, there was no one brought in for a case like that yesterday." "Are you sure?" "Yes, it was a young girl by the name of Val. I was called in to consult on the case." Henry stared at me. "I'm sorry, doctor, that doesn't sound familiar to me." I let out a sigh of frustration. "That's all right, Henry. I'll see what else I can find." Henry nodded slowly, a look on his face that was equal parts confusion and concern. My blood was cold as I walked away. Henry said there was no file and no girl, but I clearly remembered them both. I could think of no explanation for this other than police incompetency. I groaned as I realized how fucked this situation was. I resolved to continue my search, despite the setback. My next step after the precinct was my own office. My secretary looked startled as I entered. "Good morning, Doctor. I wasn't expecting to see you today," she said, surprise coloring her voice. I looked at her in confusion. "What do you mean?" She looked flustered. "Well, when you called yesterday, you said you weren't feeling well and asked me to cancel your appointments." She trailed off as my confusion intensified. "I'm sorry, doctor, was that not right?" "No, of course you're right," I said, recovering. "I'm sorry, it was a long night. I just came to pick up some paperwork." She nodded, looking slightly mollified, and turned back to her computer as I walked into my office. I sat down heavily at my desk, considering my options. With no information on Val and no memory of the interaction between us the previous day, I was at a loss. Unsure of where to turn, I picked up the phone and dialed an old friend who had been a help in the past. I frowned as the line rang. And finally clicked over to voicemail. Odd. It was unlike him to not answer his phone. I hung up without leaving a message. Feeling frustrated and with my headache returning, I resolved to take advantage of my newfound day off to recover. I left the office without looking back and realized only once I got to the elevator that I didn't have a secretary. My last one had quit without notice some time ago. I sprinted back to my office to find nothing but an empty desk and more questions. With an ever-increasing headache and my heartbeat thudding loudly in my ears, I backed slowly away and raced home. I was shaking when I returned to my apartment. I filled a glass of vodka and swallowed it quickly, chasing it with a glass of water and some aspirin. I lay down on the couch and before I was aware of it, I was asleep. My dreams were tense and nightmarish, fraught with dark corners and flashes of a bright smile with unnaturally sharp incisors. I woke up feeling even more exhausted than before. I dragged myself to the kitchen and reached for a clean glass. I stopped dead when I realized that the ring I always wore on my right hand was missing. I frantically thought back to the last time I remembered having it. It hit me, I had last seen it when I was interviewing Val. I cursed her, moaning in pain and frustration, knowing I had no way of finding her. I sank down to the kitchen floor and held my aching head in my hands. I was shaking with fatigue and my face was wet with sweat. I shivered and propelled myself back to the couch. As I fell onto the cushions, I was immediately enveloped in a fitful sleep. I heard Val's voice in my head whispering, "I can get away with anything." I woke with a jolt. I was shivering on a cold, hard surface. I cracked my burning, gritty eyes open to slits and winced at the too bright light in the white room. I tried to stretch my aching muscles only to find my arms were bound in a straitjacket. I wiggled, confusion turning to fear as the restraints held. I began to panic, yanking at the arms of the jacket frantically until I slid back to the floor, gasping with exertion. I began to scream then, loud and long, both terror and exhaustion mingling in the sound. I heard a lock click open and whipped my head around to face the door of room 49. I stopped and stared as a white-clad figure entered the room. It was my secretary, or rather, the woman who wasn't my secretary. I stared at her in disbelief as she edged cautiously closer to me. I could see a man standing in the hallway. Henry, the cheery desk officer, stared back at me now. "Val," she said soothingly, "what's got you so worked up? How do you get off your bed like this?" I continued to stare at her soundlessly, in shock. She looked at me nervously. "Val, let's get you back on the bed, okay? We can't have you sleeping on the floor." "My name's not Val," I said, my voice raw and cracking. The nurse blinked, and then nodded slowly. "Okay honey, whatever you say. Let's just get you up." She hauled me back up on the bed until I was in a sitting position, and then slowly backed away. I watched her go. I felt my face split uncomfortably into a smile, felt my too sharp incisors brush my lips. Her eyes widened, and she completed her retreat, locking the door quickly behind her. As she walked away, I heard her say, "Sometimes she forgets who and where she is, and she suffers delusions." She used to be a psychologist, you know. It's easy to feel some sympathy for her when she's like that. But you can never forget that she's dangerous, Henry. She's a remorseless cannibal, after all. Story 9, My Toothless Sister. This is my note. The time has come for me to get this off my chest. Let me start from the beginning. We were a small family that seemed normal to outsiders. I wouldn't say we were a happy family, just a normal family. It was myself, my mom, younger sister, and younger brother. I don't know who my father is, and to this date I don't know if my siblings and I share the same father. I've always found sister to be strange but never really thought too much of her. She looked like an old grandmother even as a child. She had her hair tied up behind her in a bun ever since I could remember her having hair. She had tiny eyes compared to the rest of the family and always seemed clueless and just different. The most remarkable feature was that she didn't have any teeth. My mom said it was a genetic disorder that couldn't be treated and my sister hated dentures. Sister always listened to mom. For example, whenever mom wanted to sleep during the day after her night shift and needed some peace and quiet, sister would push my younger brother little Tommy out of mom's room and into his crib room so that he can play with his toys. Sadly, little Tommy died in an accident when he was only 3 years old. He had drowned himself in our bathtub. But this never made sense to anyone because he hated getting washed in the tub. The tub was too high for him to have climbed, but it looked like he had dragged a nearby stool and used it to climb over. Poor little Tommy. Sister was 9 when this little accident happened, and I was 16. I remember mom grieving for weeks. My first strange encounter with sister occurred one day when I was reading a book on my bed, and she was playing on the floor with the dismembered body parts of some dolls mom had gifted her. This day was approximately 6 months after the accident of little Tommy. As I was reading I thought I saw through my peripherals that sister was staring at me. I looked down and she was there holding some part of the doll in one hand, giving me a vacant look. Her lower jaw dropped slowly and my eyes widened in horror as I saw that she had teeth. And not just normal teeth. Her teeth were spaced out as if every other tooth was missing, and the teeth were all shaped as canine teeth. She closes her mouth and gives me a confused look. Then she opens her mouth wide open as if to assure me there was nothing inside, and sure enough she did not have any teeth this time. I thought I was just seeing things, but I still asked her if she was okay. Sister gave me the widest smile I have ever seen. This time the same teeth showed up again. There were about 6 teeth each on the upper and lower jaw. That horrific smile will forever be etched into my brain. I could not react and immediately pretended to read my book when in reality my mind was racing to find an explanation. That night I went up to mom and told her that sister had teeth. She just looked at me like I had gone crazy and just asked me to go to bed. Over the next few days, I continued to occasionally catch a glimpse of sister's widely spaced canine teeth, although most of the time she was completely toothless. My mom still did not believe me. She kept telling me to ignore her. Just as suddenly as all this insanity had started, it all stopped. I was still feeling uneasy but glad that life was back to normal. However, this relief was short-lived for only about 6 months. One night I was sitting at my desk doing my homework, and mom was getting some sleep in her room before her night shift. I thought I felt something behind me and turned back. I let out a yelp when I saw sister in the room as I did not hear her open the door. She quietly whispered, "Come play with me." Then she gave me the very same creepy smile with the very same teeth I used to see. She must have seen the look in my face and simply asked, "What's wrong?" and ran away outside the room. I was shaking and went to sit on my bed, facing the door. Nothing happened for 30 minutes. Then she suddenly comes in with a black crayon in her hand and smiling widely said in a musical tone, "You're next." She jumped onto my bed on top of me. I immediately woke up in a salon, and a short hairstylist with hair tied in a bun called me, "You're next." I was inexplicably shaking in fear but somehow managed to fumble my way onto the seat. I looked into the mirror and see the hairstylist behind me. She gave the same smile my sister had, widely spaced canine teeth. I saw my life flash before my eyes as the lady brought the scissors toward my neck instead of my hair and slices my carotid artery. I woke up again and I am now back at my house. My sister is breathing heavily on my face and violently drawing on my neck with her black crayon. I immediately push her away. She was surprisingly heavy, but I somehow managed to push her back by a couple of feet. I immediately ran outside my room and went into Mom's room, where I see her sleeping under the blankets. I turned back to see sister at the door and she starts smiling again. She was holding in her hands my mom's clothes, covered in what seemed like blood. Mom. I screamed and pulled the blankets away. I thought I passed out, but I didn't. Time had just frozen for what seemed like hours. I'd rather not go into the details as to what I saw. It was gory. Let's just say that sister had mistaken Mom for one of her dolls. Sister shrieked. I said, "You're next." I had never heard her scream like that. I grabbed the closest object, which happened to be a lamp, and used it to keep my distance and shove her out of the room. I ran down the stairs, grabbing Mom's car keys from the hook. As I put the pedal to the metal and sped across the road, I could see sister through the rear view mirror still holding Mom's clothes, her figure getting smaller and smaller into a speck as I accelerated as hard as I could. 8 years. It's been 8 years in this asylum. I hate this place. Things didn't end well for me after that day. Sister had called 911 and I was somehow framed for the murder of my very own mother. I have been locked up for so long and I don't understand how they are so convinced I am insane. I did not kill my sweet mom, but nobody believes me. However, there might be light at the end of the tunnel after all. Supposedly I have passed their tests and I am to be released tomorrow, exactly a week before my 25th birthday. Today I was told that my custodian will be coming to see me, but I was confused because I knew I had no relatives. I went to the glass box to see this custodian. I immediately recognized her. She was short, had a hair bun, and most importantly had no teeth. Sister had not changed much except she had grown a few inches since I last saw her that day. In an eerie way, she looked exactly like the hairstylist I saw. My brain froze. We stared at each other without a word. Finally, she quietly asked, "You know what happened to little Tommy, right?" "What?" She still remembers. Of course she remembers. I was the one who made her do it. I cannot believe how easily I convinced her to get rid of him. All I had to do was buy her a doll. I do not regret anything. I never really liked little Tommy. I knew there was something wrong with him. The way he stared at me and how the iris in his eyes would turn completely black from brown. He was certainly not normal. I can't help but that I might have made a huge mistake. I should never have involved sister. Everything has gone downhill since then. I lost Mom, the only person I ever loved. As if reading my mind, sister said, "Don't worry, everything will be okay." I nodded without even thinking. Sister turned to go back but then turned her head to face me and whispered, "Remember, you're next." She gave the widest smile I still remember from the first time I saw it. It was the same creepy teeth again. As she walked away, I got the sickest feeling that although I might finally get out of this asylum, I will not get to witness my 25th birthday. This is my note. I'm sorry for anything my sister might have done to you or your loved one. I will do my best to close the loop. I need to put an end to the demon I have created. The time has come. Story 10, The Virgin Mary. English is not my language, so my apologies for errors. When I was a kid, my father's job kept him away from us. He only came home during weekends. I have 2 younger brothers, and only my mother took care of us 3. I can imagine right now that it was a lot for her since she also has a full-time job. During summer break after 4th grade, my mother had a miscarriage. We were at the hometown of my father, at his parents' house during the time, as we always were during summers. It was immediately decided that me and my siblings are going to continue studying there, under the care of our grandparents. We were thrilled at this news. We already have many friends there since we have a lot of cousins and we were always there on summers. My best childhood memories all happened there. My grandparents weren't strict like our mom, so we got to play and play and play after classes and only get called when it's already 6 for the rosary. After we ate dinner, we get out and play some more. On weekends, we get to explore the next village and climb mango trees. I even spent a whole day eating only mangoes. We walked for 2 hours to get to a mountain's peak, and stood there in awe at the sunset, wondering how the sun could look so magnificent at that hour when it hurts our eyes when it's rising. I remembered swimming at the river for long hours until my grandfather commented I already look like a catfish. I remembered wanting to bathe in the deep sea, but there's no boat we could use, so me and my brothers jumped around like monkeys on the mangroves. I didn't notice the wasp nest and hit it with my head. Oops, of all body parts that could hit it, and the wasps gathered and bit where they could. I was so panicked that I let go of the mangrove branch and jumped at the muddy seawater below us and just covered my whole body with water. Those are the great days, when we don't give a care about the world. Those were such happy days. There was only one time where I felt true terror. My grandmother was a very religious woman. She prayed the rosary every 6 o'clock in the afternoon without miss, and we did too, although we always miss it during the weekends. She always talked about Bible stories during bedtime. She was a very important person in the chapel since she organized all the activities there. As her grandkids, we were obliged to participate in church activities. During the whole month of May, there was this festival called Flores de Mayo. Children gathered at the chapel during the afternoon. I really can't remember what we learned there, probably because I wasn't listening the whole time, but I do remember bringing flowers as offering to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Every morning after breakfast, we would go farther and farther to get the most beautiful flowers we can find. At the end of Flores de Mayo, an award is given to those who brought the most beautiful flowers. Rewards were notebooks and pens, nothing fancy, but those were very precious to me at the time. Aside from the flowers we put on our vase, we also brought small flowers. I sometimes brought big flowers and even leaves, but they were cut so that they're like confetti. There was a part of the gathering where we sing a song and throw those small or cut flowers and leaves to the statue of Virgin Mary. There was a time when a naughty boy from my class made a ball of those flowers and threw it straight to the face of the statue that the statue almost fell. We were shocked and immediately stopped singing. My grandmother was very angry. The next day, that part of the program was removed. We were instructed to bring only those flowers that we kept on our vases, or as in my case, a can. This particular night I can still remember so vividly. There was a storm, like a real huge storm. It was raining so much and so the rivers overflowed, and that time there was a high tide, so our house flooded. The wind blew hard against the roof. There was a commotion near the shore where they kept the boats, and being the nosy kid that I was, I went there to find what it was all about even though it was really, really cold. A woman was crying because her husband has set out to catch fish, and hasn't returned. Those days, radios and televisions aren't really a thing for that place, and so there was no way one would know if there's a warning against storms. The neighbors were trying to calm her down, and I watched them during the whole process. Surprisingly, the wind abruptly stopped blowing so hard, the rain stopped pouring, and the sea went calm. The crying woman was surprised too, and gazed at the sea wonderingly, just like me. The neighbors convinced her that her husband is fine, and would be home soon now that the weather seemed okay. They managed to lead her back inside the house, since they were all so cold. It was almost dawn at this time, and I remembered seeing the sky lit up like every sunrise. I can't believe a storm like that could die off this fast. I decided to head home also, as there was no more to watch, and it was really creepy being out there. The chapel is situated near the said shore, and I saw that the door is wide open. I didn't dare venture near it, as the chapel looked really creepy when there's no one else in there. I decided to take a look at the sea once more, to make sure it was still calm, and tell the news to the family. I remembered seeing someone on the water, and was now coming to the shore. I felt so afraid, since who would walk at the sea after that storm? But still, it's a long dash before I got to my grandparents' house, so I decided to hide at the nearby bush. What I saw still haunts me to this day, and I believe would haunt me forever. I could feel my pulse in my ears, and I was breathing too hard. The statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, her feet up to her knees, were covered in mud, walking straight to the chapel. My breathing must have been too noisy because she paused right at the door, looked right at me, and gave me a smile that chilled me to my bone. I ran as fast as I can to get away from there. The fact that the statue's feet were covered in mud was all my grandmother could talk about the whole day. She talked on and on about how the statue was always protecting the place, and that it was the reason why the storm abruptly stopped. I was really torn on the inside, wanting to believe that the statue will protect us, but remembering the dread I felt when it looked at me. Something about that smile was so sinister, and honestly I haven't felt that dread again until now, and I've been through a lot since then. My feelings won, I guess, since from that day onward, I never stepped foot into any church again. Story 11, Mr. Law, Love. What a wicked game you played to make me feel this way. What a wicked thing to do to let me dream of you. What a wicked thing to say, you never felt this way. What a wicked thing to do to make me dream of you. Chris Isaak. Wicked game. The full moon is out and I'm enjoying it with the gargoyles. I'm sitting on the roof next to Maverick's roost entrance. Currently Vlad and Maverick are playing tag in the night sky. Mountain lands and sits next to me. Maverick is highly skilled. Vlad isn't a slouch himself. I add. He is one of the greatest flyers in the kingdom. They do this every night? Yes. It is their favorite pastime. I always wondered what it would be like to fly. Looks so free. It is the ultimate freedom. Hey. Now we have a moment. I wanted to ask if you needed anything. No. You asking is a kindness. We require nothing at this moment. Okay. Just let me know if you do. I will. We watch Vlad and Maverick play for a few minutes. You want to fly? Mountain asks. Excuse me? I can take you up. Holy shit. Really? Yes. Oh boy. Now is my chance. I would like that. Mountain stands. Please stand up. Okay. Now what? We fly. Mountain grabs me and we fall off the roof. We hurtle towards the ground, but at the last moment Mountain spreads his wings and we swoop upwards to the sky. You jerk. You didn't that on purpose. Mountain smiles. I wanted to put extra thrill in your first flight. I was right. Flying is exquisite. We flew among the clouds and watched the ground pass below. Maverick flies up and says something. He then gently pokes my nose and takes off. Vlad pulls up next to us. Hey, Faust. Glad you could join us. Glad to be here. Vlad laughs and does a barrel roll around us. Mountain provides the ultimate flying package. We dive, roll and flip. With plenty of regular flying in between. You ready for the grand finale? Sure. Do you trust me? I do. Here we go then. Mountain soars upwards at a dizzying speed. Higher and higher we climb. We fly past the clouds and then Mountain throws me up and I fly upwards alone. There is a moment where my momentum stops and I pause in the air. I look at the full moon and close my eyes as I begin to fall. I am so at peace at this moment. I fall back through the clouds. Mountain flies next to me as I fall. How was that? Beautiful. Thanks for taking me up. Anytime. Mountain grabs me gently and we soar to a soft landing on the roof. So how did you enjoy your first flight? Better than I ever could have imagined. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Now if you'll excuse me, I must patrol. Of course. Good night. Good night. Mountain takes off. I climb in Maverick's roost and into the attic. I should be going to bed but my body is tingling from my first flight. It could take a while before I can go asleep. I wake up refreshed and still invigorated by my flying. I whistle as I shower and get dressed. I go to the kitchen to find a plate of eggs and bacon still hot. Bourdain has really stepped up his game. My gremlin cook is amazing. Thank you, sir. Bourdain nods as he opens an energy drink and puts it in front of me. Breakfast was delicious, per usual. I check the cupboards and see I need to go to the grocery store. Now would be a good time. I go outside and head towards the guest house. I pound on the door and as I wait I wave to the gargoyles. During the day they are stone, but I like to think they can still see me. The door opens and I look down to see Snowflake. He says something and slams the door shut. I pound on the door again. Open this door, you little asshole. I pound some more. Finally the door opens and this time it's Jason just in jeans. What? I woke him up. Snowflake shut the door on me. To go get me. What do you want? Going to town. Want anything? Jason looks at me stone-faced. Seriously. Do you need anything? As a matter of fact I do. I'm planning on putting bird feeders and houses along the trails. I want to go check out what's available. That sounds nice. Yup. Jason says as he puts some shoes on. He reaches over and takes a t-shirt off of the couch and sniffs it before he puts it on. Ready. Let's go. You ain't going to shower or brush your teeth? Oh. I didn't know this is a date. Should I wash my ass and put on deodorant? I turn and walk away. About 2 hours later we are walking in the farmer's market. I didn't know about this place until Maria told me. Seems her mom buys most of restaurant's ingredients here. Back in the day this place was a warehouse. A lot of farmers bought it and converted it. This place also has an outdoor area filled with vendors and food trucks. Both me and Jason are loaded down with stuff. Bourdain is going to be a very happy gremlin. Which will make me a very happy Faust. We load up Lily's trunk. I close the lid and turn to Jason. All right. Let's go to the hardware store. Just so you know. I know why you ask me to come along on these trips. Heavy lifting capabilities. Can't prove that. I answer smiling. Smirking really. Jason leans against his truck. You don't have to come. I can handle the hardware store alone. Fair is fair. I do want to come back here and look around. I wonder if I can bring other cool things to this area. The area could use it. A farmer's market alone can't turn all of this around. That's what I was thinking. Something in the alley moves. Jason turns his head and looks. I look too and see a woman standing there, and from the looks of it she is in rough shape. She is dirty with sores on her skin. Her dirty dishwater blonde hair hangs over her face. The dress she is wearing is tattered and threadbare. What throws me off is the fact she isn't wearing any shoes. Let's give her some money. Jason says. Yeah. By the looks of it. She could use some. The woman lifts her head slightly. Jason? Jason's eyes widen and he looks at me. Run. He grabs my arm and we take off. I look back and see she is chasing us with unreal speed. We run towards one of the empty buildings. Jason, while on the run, kicks in the plywood put up as a door. We need to split up. Meet at the cars in an hour. Jason says as he runs off to the right. Fuck this. I stop. I don't run. Not anymore. I wait for the woman. She runs in and stops. She starts walking towards me slowly, trying to take my love. Whore. I don't know what you are talking about, but we can talk this out. She moves almost faster than the eye can see. I've seen this before. The woman grabs me by the neck and slams me against a concrete pillar. She draws her face close to mine. Her teeth are nasty and her breath smells like death. Like she is rotting from the inside out. Her eyes confirm my theory. They are goat-like. She is possessed and fully integrated. What are you doing with Jason, whore? We are just friends. Liar. I should rip your muscles off of your bones for lying to me. She smiles. Who am I kidding? I'm going to do that anyway. I knee her in the stomach and hit her in the face. She isn't fazed in the slightest. She slowly turns her head back to me. My turn. With her free hand she starts hitting me in the face and stomach with her supernatural speed. She stops and leans in. Her lips close to mine. Where is my love, whore? I don't know. I gasp. Then I will bring him to me. He won't come. I know Jason better and in ways you never could. He responds to honey, not the stick. She throws me like I weigh nothing. I hit the floor and slide a few feet. She is on me before I can do anything. She pulls me up to my knees and grabs my head. Jason. She calls out. Come here or I will kill her. Don't do it. Stay away, Jason, I will kill her. She screams in a death metal voice. Jason walks down some stairs in front of us. Let her go. Jason. she says as she starts to turn my head. I said, let her go. She is in our way. No, there is just me and you. The woman lets me go and walks to Jason. One of my eyes start to swell shut. I try to move but my body won't respond and do what I want it to do. Jason. The woman coos, how did you find me? I never stopped looking. Far and wide, I've looked. Oh love, I was losing faith. I never thought I would find you. I came here as a last-ditch effort. Now you can leave. She kisses him, not without you. I've learned so much. We will never be together again. You need to move on. She throws him to the ground while screaming. No. I see concern and worry on her face. She rushes over and lays down next to Jason. I'm so sorry. I still lose my temper from time to time. You know how I can be. Yes, I do. That's why you need to go. I don't care where, just go. Why are you saying these hurtful things? Because they are true. I never loved you, not really. You manipulated a confused teen. You took advantage when I was weak. She caresses the side of his face. No. I love you. I know you love me. I know it. No. Jason yells as he hits her. The woman hits him back as she screams in a deep roar, you little insolent shit. She gets up and grabs some rope nearby. She drops back down on Jason in a straddle. You will love me. She screams as she starts tying him up. Jason struggles but is no match for her supernatural strength. The woman closes her eyes. Her head and body shake with rage. Slowly it stops. She opens her eyes and grabs Jason by the throat. Stop, love. She leans down and puts her forehead against his. I know you are angry still. I'm sorry for what happened. It was that goddamn priest. It was all his fault. Your parents should have never listened to him. Oh my God. Jason's parents. He has never said how they died. My heart is breaking and filling with terror. I'm so sorry, Jason. I've never felt this way. I was rash, inexperienced in love. I just wanted to be with you. I wanted to stay inside of you. It's euphoric. Do you know that? Being inside of you is euphoric and warm. Like I was wrapped in the clouds of heaven. I was hurting you, burning you out. I've learned patience and balance. We can be together without harm forever. Like the woman you're in now? She is just meat. A vessel like many before her. You're not meat, Jason. You are my lover. You are the home I long for more than heaven itself. She lays down next to Jason, propped up by her elbow. We had good times, remember? We talked and laughed. We shared your dreams. I can make them real. The things in this world I can show you. We can share all of it forever. She runs her hand down his chest and puts her hand on his crotch. Remember our first time? It was magical. I guided your hand. This is grotesque. I have to stop this. I look around and see a pipe nearby. Slowly and quietly I inch closer to it. My body aches with pain with every movement. The woman starts kissing Jason on the lips as she talks. I can be better. Far better now. I've learned many things about the human body. Such pleasure I can give to you. My hand closes around the pipe. The woman moves and lays on Jason before we are together. I've always wanted to know what it feels like to be true lovers. She rips Jason's shirt open. Slowly she kisses her way down his chest. She sharply inhales. Your taste and smell are intoxicating. She keeps kissing downwards. I lift the pipe so it doesn't make a sound as it nearly scrapes on the floor. I slowly stand up. I can't make a sound. The woman unbuttons Jason's jeans and kisses what's underneath. I take large strides to cover the most ground. I swing the pipe with all of my body weight. It wasn't hard. My body collapses in the middle of the swing. The pipe connects with the woman's head and knocks her off of Jason. Jason scrambles and gets up. You okay? Jason asks. I've been better. I say, untying him. We need to hurry. I have no idea how long she will be out. Jason nods and picks me up. He carries me outside to Lily. He helps me in and asks, you okay to drive? Yeah. Jason hops in his truck. From the alleyways comes a roar. Jason. We start our cars and peel out. Once we are home, Jason carries me inside to Betty's office. What happened? We were attacked. Jason lays me down on the couch and Betty starts inspecting me with Bourdain's help. Jason looks down at me and leaves. Okay. This is bad, but you've been in worse shape. Betty cleans me up and puts a butterfly stitch on my eyebrow. Where's Jason? I ask. I don't know. Let's focus on you. I start to sit up, but Betty puts a hand on my chest. Whoa. You need to rest. Betty. I need to check on Jason. He will be fine. I grab Betty's arm. No. I don't think he will. I'm physically hurt, but he is far more wounded than me. Betty steps back, stunned. What do you mean? I'll tell you later. I say, standing up. I walk outside slowly. I got a rough few days ahead of me. I knock on the guest house door. Jason? There is no answer. I open the door and walk in. Jason is sitting on the couch, lost in thought. Snowflake is standing in front of him, worried. I walk around and sit next to Jason. Jason? You should be resting. I'll be fine. Jason, what was that? I need to tell you. Today you almost died because of my secret. You had nothing to do with today. I had everything to with what happened today. Jason takes a deep breath. You remember when I disappeared for a while at school? Vaguely, yeah. I think that was the reason I didn't recognize Jason at first when we met. My father bought some stuff at an estate sale. Not for us. Just to flip. I found out later demons can attach themselves to objects. A way to travel from family to family as it destroyed them. The demon followed the stuff my father bought to our home. That's when it found me. It's okay. Go on. It was innocent at first. I thought it was cool. I had a ghost friend. I had no idea at the time. I was young, I was stupid. Things kept progressing. It told me it could help me protect my parents. No specific threat, mind you. Just danger in general. That's when and why it entered me. Things changed. It became jealous of everybody. Mom, Dad, anyone that competed for my attention. It became abusive when it became jealous. She had fallen in love with me. Or a version of it anyway. It can't love Jason. Demons can't love. How would you know? Jason asks sharply. It's just nothing. You know nothing. We were connected at a deep level. Nothing was hidden between us. I know she loves me. I sit in silence. This version of Jason I have never seen before. I want my version back. The happy-go-lucky, can-do-anything, annoying version. My body was starting to burn out and decay. My parents called a priest. He came a few days later and the demon flipped out. It got really bad. What happened? The exorcism lasted days. The demon fought tooth and nail to stay. At the height of the exorcism, I passed out. When I awoke, the demon was out of me and my parents were dead and the priest was gone. It is believed the priest somehow forced or invited the demon in as a last attempt to save my life. The thing is, nobody knows for sure what happened with the priest and my parents. I know the mind of the demon and how she felt about them. Jason. I don't want to hear it. Many people are dead because of me. That woman today probably had family, friends. That is, until one day she just disappeared, leaving them in confusion and hurt. All because of me. That's not your fault. None of it is. You are wrong. After my parents were found dead, my uncle was called. He helped me get emancipated. I stayed here to rebuild my life, to continue what my parents started. To try to make up what I done. Which you did. They would be so proud of you. Maybe. Doesn't matter. I'm leaving. What? I don't know what the demon will do. It may find its way here and endanger everything. I put my hand on Jason's. He pulls it back. Don't. I understand why he doesn't want a woman to touch him right now. It still hurts. I thought maybe we were good enough friends where I could give him comfort. I need to focus on Jason. This isn't about me and I know it. Don't leave. You know what I'm capable of. Just give me time to figure something out. Don't leave, please. Jason says nothing. Which is better than no, I guess. I get up and make a come here motion only Snowflake can see as I walk. He follows me outside. I squat down and look at him. The one thing I've never doubted about the gremlin is his devotion to Jason. Jason is in a bad place. You understand? Snowflake nods. Do not let him leave. Under no circumstances do you let him leave. If he leaves we can't protect him. Understood? Snowflake nods and goes back inside. I stand and exhale. It feels like I've been holding my breath for hours. I'll talk to the gargoyles and have them watch the house and give Snowflake backup if needed. In the short term I can take care of the demon. The wounds ripped back open here today, I have no idea how to fix.